Good morning. We have general questions. Question number 1, Sheikh Brodie.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on repeat prescription charges process.
Minister Michael Matheson.
There are no charges for repeat prescriptions. Prescriptions are free to all NHS patients in Scotland. In the 12 months running up to the abolition of prescription charges, there were just under 432,000 prescription prepayment certificates bought by patients. These covered periods of 4 or 12 months and were aimed at patients with repeat medicine needs. All of those patients are now benefiting from the removal of this tax on ill health. Prior to abolition, it was estimated that some 2/3 of paid-for prescriptions could be attributed to treating long-term conditions where repeat prescriptions are most common. This is an example of how our policy on free prescriptions is helping the most vulnerable people in our society to access the medicines they need and who no longer have to put cost before their health.
Sheikh Brodie.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Last year, the Cabinet Secretary for Health indicated that there were substantial potential savings, possible savings, through reducing the number of repeat prescriptions issued that were not, in fact, bona fide repeatable. Can the Minister give me an update on how the Scottish Government plans to improve the system for managing repeat prescriptions?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, we have a prescribing work stream within NHS Scotland in its efficiency and productivity programme. It aims to develop an IT tool and best practice document to help general practices to improve the quality of their repeat medicine review process. We are also giving careful consideration to the management of repeat prescription lists in order to help to reduce the potential for over-ordering of medicines not required by patients, as was indicated by Sheikh Brodie. The aim of the IT tool will be to provide general practice with a straightforward way of supporting them to help to implement the repeat medicines review, polypharmacy and Scottish patient safety programme initiatives. And the IT tool and the best practice document should be available to NHS boards and to GP practices during the course of this year.
Richard Simpson.
I thank the Minister for those comprehensive replies on tackling medicine waste. Can he tell me how things are progressing with the registration of patients for chronic prescribing with their pharmacists? And can he indicate what his views might be when I say to him that if I buy paracetamol over the counter it costs 25 pence, but a free prescription for paracetamol costs the National Health Service £3.10. The total cost of free paracetamol prescriptions was £7.2 million. In a time of austerity, isn't it time for a radical rethink, or is he happy to continue to spend taxpayers' money in this way?
Minister.
Well, I'm not entirely sure whether Richard Simpson is now advocating the reintroduction of prescription charges. If that's the case, I think that's to be regretted, because I believe that the free prescription policy which we've introduced here in Scotland helps to support those who are most vulnerable in our society, who are very often having to pay for prescriptions, and they make a choice between whether they paid for their medication or whether they put food on their table. And we have made the decision that we should end that type of tax on people's ill health, and as a policy we will continue to pursue that for the people of Scotland and in their interests.
Question number 2, Mary Fee.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it evaluates the through care and support given to prisoners.
Cabinet Secretary Kenny McCaskill.
The Scottish Government is currently undertaking a review of voluntary through care as part of Phase 2 of its Reducing Reoffending programme. The review will explore options for improving support for prisoners in custody and on their release into the community. We do know that if through care support is to be effective, services and release plans need to be in place beyond the prison gates. That's why on 11th April I announced £7.7 million of funding through the Reducing Reoffending Change Fund to support the delivery of mentoring support to offenders across Scotland pre and post-release. The mentors will work with individuals and, if appropriate, their families to help them make positive choices and to enable them to live their lives free from crime.
Mary Fee.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer. I recently met with ex-offenders and was alarmed to hear of a fragmented system of support and through care, which does little to actually support offenders and indeed their families. Given the current level of reoffending in Scotland and the difficulties that many prisoners face upon release to integrate back into society, does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that through care should start from the first day the offender spends in prison?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I think in the ideal world that would be the situation. I think that's what the prison service do. Clearly, the first day is usually an analysis of the prisoner's needs and wants. It can vary from just checking them in, dealing with accommodation that they've left, dealing with problems that they may face in terms of families, pets, the whole gamut. Never mind assessing matters in terms of their needs, whether it's drug, alcohol, mental health, dyslexia and a variety of matters. What I can say is that the member's right to raise this issue. That's why, as a government, we are investing in through care, where we are seeking to make sure that we have mentoring and meet people at the gates. But I think the member is right that the Scottish Prison Service, although they cannot be responsible for what will ultimately happen out with, do certainly, and I think do accept the responsibility of starting that assessment to deal with people while they are in their care and control. And that is a matter, I think, that the Chief Executive, Colin McConnell, will prioritise, and I'm sure he would be happy to meet and discuss with the member.
Sandra White.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer, and particularly the mentoring and basically the rollout of more programmes on mentoring. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if the mentoring programme will include prison officers or prison staff helping with mentoring, and also other offenders or ex-offenders, and how this particular programme will work to roll out into the community?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, yes, I think the member raises an important issue. We do know that mentoring is effective in helping offenders to make more positive choices. I think it's important that a variety of organisations and individuals should be involved. Sometimes that will be a professional prison officer, but equally sometimes it can be mentoring and support from ex-offenders. And indeed, I was meeting with Tom Halpin, the chair of SACRO, who are developing and dealing with a mentoring service in the community, specifically relating to female offenders, where there are those who have been through the challenges, who have not just talked the talk, but to some extent walked the walk. And I think we do know that that is important. But mentoring comes in a variety of shapes and forms. We are committed to it as a government. We are investing in it as a government. And it is important that all parties, whether professional or indeed peer support, should be supported.
Question 3, James Dornan.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent discussions it has had with the Electoral Commission regarding campaign funding and donations in relation to the independence referendum.
Cabinet Secretary Nicola Sturgeon.
Government officials have regular discussions with the Electoral Commission about the Commission's role in the referendum, including campaign regulation. The Commission published a report on, amongst other things, campaign spending limits on the 29th of January. The Scottish Government accepted all of the Commission's recommendations, and this, of course, is reflected in the terms of the Scottish Independence Referendum Bill.
James Dornan.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. In the Daily Telegraph of 26 September 2012, the Labour MP John Mann described Mr Ian Taylor's donations to the Conservative Party as dirty money, and was reported demanding that the Tories hand the money back. The Minister will be aware of the public concern about this donation and may have seen the petition by National Collective about it, which I have signed and would urge others to do. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that Scotland's referendum must be conducted to the highest possible standards, and that therefore the No campaign should hand Mr Taylor's £500,000 back, pending a full internal investigation of this dodgy donation?
Cabinet Secretary.
I am, of course, aware of the concerns that have been raised in the last couple of weeks and the seriousness of the questions that have been asked. I am also very aware that there are those in the Labour Party who previously criticised donations from the same source when those were made to the Conservative Party. It is obviously not for me to run the No campaign, but I do agree that it may well be a wise course of action for them to hand back the money pending an internal investigation of the type suggested by the member. I am also aware that a petition is being pursued, although that is, of course, a matter for the Public Petitions Committee. For our part, Presiding Officer, we are absolutely determined that this referendum will be run to the highest standards of probity.
Question number 4, Jamidi.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it is planning additional measures to tackle youth unemployment and promote apprenticeship opportunities.
Minister Angela Constance.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The latest employment figures published earlier this month indicate that we are seeing positive results from our efforts to date. Youth unemployment in Scotland has fallen by 29,000 in the last year to 65,000. That is a 6.8% fall to 16.1% and the lowest rate since December-February 2010. And for the second year running, we have surpassed our target to provide 25,000 modern apprenticeships. This shows, Presiding Officer, our efforts to support young people into work are making a difference. Of course, more needs to be done, and I can assure Mr Eadie and Parliament that we will indeed continue to use every lever of power available to us to tackle youth unemployment.
Jim Eadie.
I thank the Minister for that answer and, of course, welcome the reduction in youth unemployment. But what further measures will the Minister take to build on this success to ensure that every 16 to 19-year-old has the offer of a place in education or training so that all young people in Scotland have every opportunity to fulfil their true potential?
Minister.
I thank Mr Eadie for that question. Could I start, Presiding Officer, by putting on record my thanks and recognition to employers large and small across Scotland, to employers across the public, private and third sector who are making every effort to provide young people with an opportunity to enter the world of work. I believe and think we can evidence that in Scotland we have some very distinctive policies, whether it's free tuition, opportunities for all. Our modern apprenticeship programme is very different in Scotland. Community Jobs Scotland, as we move forward, we have the Employability Fund and, of course, we have the most ambitious employer recruitment incentive this year as we move forward with the Make Young People Your Business campaign. So I think we can evidence that government policy, combined with the endeavours of employers across Scotland, that we are making progress. And the latest statistics is a much welcome significant step in the right direction, but now is the time to increase our resolve, not to be blown off course. We could, of course, do more if Job Centre Plus DWP was devolved, and I very much regret that the UK Government is not going to implement the European Youth Guarantee.
Ken Macintosh.
Officer, can I also welcome the recent fall in the number of young unemployed people in Scotland, and also welcome any addition or improvement to the apprenticeship programme the Minister can offer. Can I ask the Minister if she shares my alarm at the almost 300% increase in claimant count for young people who have been unemployed for more than 2 years? And can she tell me if there is anything specifically that the Government can do to help this particularly vulnerable and disadvantaged group?
Minister.
I thank Mr Macintosh for his question. It's certainly in the right vein, and I share his concern. Certainly the latest figures show that for young people claiming benefits over 12 months, for that group of young people, the figures are indeed increasing. And for me, that certainly begs some very serious questions about the impact of the work programme. Mr Macintosh will be more than well aware that we don't have any influence or control over the work programme, something that I very much regret. In terms of looking at those facts, in terms of young people that are long-term unemployed, the strive, the endeavour of all our policies in this Parliament is to prevent youth unemployment becoming long-term unemployment. That's why we are very much looking at the vein of prevention. We believe, unlike the UK Government, that you have to intervene earlier as opposed to later. And with Youth Employment Scotland, the most ambitious employer recruitment incentive that will be available this year, we will endeavour as much as we can to ensure that young unemployed Scots don't become long-term unemployed, and I hope that we'll have Mr Macintosh's support in doing so.
If we could have brief questions and answers, we might make some progress. Question number 5, Stuart Stevenson.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent representations has it made to the European Commission regarding the Cod Recovery Plan.
Cabinet Secretary Richard Lockhead.
The Scottish Government met with the European Commission as recently as the 15th of April to press our case for changes to the Cod Recovery Plan, and in particular for Scottish vessels that catch very little cod to be made exempt from limits on their days at sea. My officials will continue, of course, to discuss this issue with the Commission at every opportunity, and I myself hope to discuss this with the Commissioner when I attend the next Council of Ministers meeting in May.
Stuart Stevenson.
Is the Minister aware that, once again, we are likely to see unnecessary and early closure of a number of viable fisheries, and this will threaten livelihoods and communities across Scotland? Can the Minister tell the Chamber what action might stem from the European Commission, in particular, in delivering greater control that we might exercise over our fishery stocks?
Cabinet Secretary.
Can I just clarify that the Scottish Government's intention is to ensure that our fisheries do remain open for as long as possible throughout the next year, and we did indeed achieve that in 2012. However, the cod recovery plan is dysfunctional. It's made in Brussels. It's inappropriate for Scottish circumstances, Scottish waters, and that is why more of these decisions have to be taken closer to home. In the meantime, we are arguing for the cod recovery plan to be much more appropriate for our own circumstances and to be flexible. At the moment, it actually encourages vessels to target cod, not to avoid cod, which of course is counterproductive to the aims of the plan.
Tavish Scott.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware that the IC's 2012 fishing science shows that the spawning stock biomass of cod in the North Sea is 2.5 times larger now than it was in 2006. In light of that, would you be prepared to say the cod recovery plan has come to the end of its useful life, it should be abolished? And when will regional management actually take over in the North Sea?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, clearly, I have just said I think the cod recovery plan is not fit for purpose. I think the huge sacrifices made by the Scottish fleet over the last decade or so are paying dividends, as illustrated by the statistics read out by Tavish Scott. Therefore, we have to have conservation policies in place, yes, but the cod recovery plan is not fit for purpose, and the sooner we have regionalisation, which will hopefully happen as soon as possible, the sooner we will be able to have appropriate policies in place in Scottish waters.
Question 6, Sarah Boyack.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent discussions it has had with NHS Lothian regarding the Board's investigation of readmission rates.
Minister Michael Matheson.
The Scottish Government considers and shares a range of healthcare quality statistics with NHS boards to support improvement and benchmarking. These statistics include hospital standardised mortality ratios, readmission rates, length of stay, accident emergency rates and hospital-associated infection rates. We encourage health boards to monitor their performance across all of these areas and other relevant indicators to drive continuous improvement in their performance. NHS Lothian will be working with Information Services Division to understand the factors influencing their readmission rates more fully, and the Scottish Government will be updated on the outcome of this work and will share the findings of this with other NHS boards as part of our improvement approach.
Sarah Boyack.
Can I thank the Minister for his response? Lothian is facing well-documented capacity issues, and the fact that more than 11% of medical patients are being readmitted will add to this pressure. A recent audit of the ERI found that the hospital was at 110% capacity, with more than 1 in 5 patients hit by delayed discharge. What additional funds is the Scottish Government providing to enable local authorities to deliver on the 4-week target he set from this month, given that the 6-week targets are still not being met in 15 out of the last 20 quarters?
Minister.
Well, on the issue around NHS Lothian, I think it's important that we allow NHS Lothian to undertake the review to get to the bottom of why there are variations in their readmission rates, particularly in the medical and surgical units, and that has to be undertaken on a site-by-site basis so that they can interrogate that data as thoroughly as possible to look at what the implications are from an acute end and also from a primary care and from a community care aspect as well. And my understanding is that the review work will be reported to the Board's Healthcare Governance Committee in June of this year, which will allow them to then look at what further measures may be necessary in order to address that. And that will include looking at areas such as delayed discharges and the way in which they are working with different local authorities in addressing these issues. And they will share those findings with us, which we will then use to share with other health boards in Scotland to look at what further improvements can be made as a result of this review.
Question 7, Angus MacDonald.
To ask the Scottish Government what assistance it is providing to cattle and sheep farmers in light of reported difficulties in these sectors.
Cabinet Secretary Rich Blockhead.
No one could fail to be moved by the pictures of the devastation caused to farming communities by the recent extreme winter weather, particularly in the south west of Scotland. We provided £500,000 funding to the Fallen Stock Company to reduce the costs incurred by farmers for the disposing of lost animals, and the dialogue, of course, continues with the industry as to what further assistance can be given, and I hope to make a further announcement about this next week.
Angus MacDonald.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his reply. He'll have seen recent media reports which claim that Scottish farming is facing its biggest crisis since foot and mouth disease due to exceptional weather in various parts of the country. Given the lack of grass, many livestock producers are facing also the high price of feed and the unseasonably high fall in stock figures. What more can the Scottish Government do to assist livestock farmers at this difficult time?
Cabinet Secretary.
The member is quite right about the severity of the impact on Scottish agriculture. And of course, during the recent severe weather, we opened a hotline, we hired 7 tracked vehicles for use across the country. We also arranged with SSE to use their helicopters to drop feed in inaccessible areas at farmers' requests. And of course, as I indicated, we made resource available for picking up fallen stock. And I am willing to make further support available. As I said, we'll make an announcement next week. We will stand by Scottish agriculture in its hour of need.
Thank you. That ends general questions.